Good evening. Good evening. Welcome, beloveds of God. Uh, welcome. We have our second pre-session tonight for Northeastern Pennsylvania Synod Assembly 2025. Welcome. It's good to see you all here tonight. Ooh, we've got more than last week's meeting on Thursday, so woohoo! Some brownie points there. Good to have you all with us tonight. My name is Lauren Applegate. I'm a pastor here in the Synod. My ministry is called Free to Be, and for the past 6 months or so, I've been working as the Synod Assembly Coordinator and making sure that our time together in these coming days will be fun and exciting and good and on point for theme, and making sure that we do what we need to do and have fun while we're doing it. So, thank you all for being here and thank you for your participation. So as we get started, and welcome us into a moment of prayer and grounding before we get started with this evening's tasks at hand. So the Lord be with you. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks. We give you thanks for this time to be together, for this time to reflect upon your goodness and the ways that your work is happening through our system, through our collection of dots. We give you thanks. We know and trust that you are present with us as we are feeling the excitement or the anxiety or the fear or the questions that we're feeling right now. May your closeness bring us peace. Be with us in this time and go with us wherever we go from here, and continue to be with us as we love, heal, and engage this world that you so deeply love. It's in Jesus' name, in all your names, we pray these things. Amen. Amen. So as we get started, we have some tasks and topics of conversation that we want to make sure we cover. We have an hour and a half of time on the schedule tonight, but we hope, and I'm not alone in this, the other planners are in agreement that we would love to send you out early, just because we know we went over on Thursday last week. So our first topic of conversation will be from Donald Boyer as a member of Synod Council, and he'll be sharing a new addendum to the Bulletin of Reports from Synod Council. Then, after that, we'll hear from Eric Gombert, the Director of Operations, which is during the time we will practice a vote. We practiced a vote on Thursday. We want to make sure we practice a vote again tonight. And so please have your devices with you so you're able to do that. Following the practice vote, we will have some sharing from Deacon Kat Tigerman and Pastor Jira in conversation about the 6261 and the licensed lay ministry that is being lifted up and celebrated all throughout our assembly this week. Then after that, we'll take general assembly questions with the time we have left to make sure that you are having as much clarity as you can as we go into our event at the end of this week. So that is our time. You will notice that chat questions here, Eric has renamed himself. So chat questions here is where you can send your questions or into the open chat. Either are fine, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered. Now, as you've heard, we're going to talk about different topics throughout the course of the evening. And so if you want to hold your questions until we get to that part, it'll be easier for Eric to make sure that we have them all covered and make sure that we address the questions. In the event that we don't have an opportunity to address your question tonight, we will make sure it gets to the person who can appropriately respond to it in a timely fashion. All right. So again, feel free to chat your questions in to chat questions here. And it's my hope that you enjoy this evening and that we get some time to speak and talk and experience how our collection of dots are creating something really awesome. So without further ado, I welcome Donald Boyer.
Greetings all. I'm here substituting for the vice president of the synod. Her grandson has graduation exercises this evening, and Also for our Synod Secretary, who has a joint council meeting. I want to apologize ahead of time if I have to stop and cough because I'm nursing a sinus infection. The document that I'm going to present was generated by the Synod Council on Saturday at a 6-hour meeting. And we decided that this should be an addendum to the bulletin of reports so that it will be part of the permanent record. And it will be going out in print to all of the voting members of the assembly. So you have it. The Synod Council would like to share the following statement. The Synod Council has heard and received concerns voiced by members of the Synod regarding two issues: a personnel concern and a concern about the strategic intent. The Synod Council has met, and while we cannot resolve all concerns immediately, we are committed to working together to move our Synod forward. We recognize and value the responsible of hearing all voices in the Synod. The Synod Council is considering the following recommendations for Synod personnel moving forward in order to ensure transparency, accountability, and justice. The Synod Council shall form a personnel committee and adopt members and appoint members, Guidelines for the role and structure of the personnel committee will be established by the Synod Council beginning with the June 28th, 2025 Synod Council meeting. The Synod Council will develop guidelines for the personnel committee, as well as recommendations for the bishop's interaction involving staffing matters, including the recommendation that at least one additional person should be present when discussing personnel matters with any Synod staff. In accordance with Section 11.04 of our Synod Constitution, the Synod Council Executive Committee shall ensure that a mutual ministry committee be formed to support the bishop in their work. All Synod staff are reminded that the Synod Council is also available to listen to concerns and cares. Regarding the second concern, the Synod Council adopted the following resolution. Resolved that the strategic intent developed by Bishop Christopher DeForest be received with appreciation for the important issues, concepts, and direction it recommends, but that implementation of this strategic intent be delayed until after the 2026 Synod Assembly, at which time an election for bishop will be held that could strongly influence how long the staff positions called for by the strategic intent will be maintained by the Synod. Our intention in tabling the strategic intent is to continue the Synod Council and Synod-wide discernment of the future of the Synod structure. The Council will lead a year of collaborative planning, provide opportunities to hear further input, and have further discussion about the Synod's strategic intent to ensure that we have the resources and time to create and implement a successful plan. We thank the bishop for his leadership in this work. and we will continue to work with the bishop moving forward. The bishop wrote and continuously revised the strategic intent with input from the associates, the deans, synod council, and the executive committee, as well as feedback received from the 9 chew-in chats and other engagements with members of the synod at large. The Synod Restructuring Committee that was created by the Synod Council 2 years ago will continue to work with the council and bishop to form a long-range plan for our synod structure. The executive committee is working with the bishop to ensure that the duties of the executive associate to the bishop are covered in the short term, with our structure work continues. At this time, we ask that you continue to keep the Synod Council and all Synod leadership in your prayers, and that we work together toward advancing our future work as church. We are remembered of the words of Romans 14:19. Let us therefore pursue what makes for peace and mutual upbuilding. And that finishes the addendum to the Bulletin of Reports under the work of the Synod Council. Do we have any questions, Eric?
We have not received any questions at this time.
So at this point, folks, if you have questions that you would like to pose there in the chat, Donald is welcome to answer them and is ready to answer them if you have any. In the event that there are no questions, we can move on to the next topic. We want to make sure we give opportunity for conversation.
Okay. We've received a question. I'm concerned that this limits the bishop's ability to operate as head of staff. Has this been addressed?
Yes, it has been addressed, and the bishop will continue in his work to operate as the leader of the synod, just the way it was done before. And so we expect that there'll be no change in that.
Question, what are you considering for restructuring?
Well, as I've stated in the treasurer's report for the last 3 years, the synod cannot proceed and pay for the current structure. It is not sustainable. And what we're talking about is structure are a number of things. First of all, what's the synod staff going to look like? Secondly, do we need 9 mission districts? And when we put something together, we want to make sure we have a plan that works well, but also is one that is affordable. And let me take a minute and I'll tell you what our problem is. In 2023, to balance the budget, we used approximately $250,000 to pay for all of the expenses. That $250,000 came from other funding sources. In 2024, we reduced that to $212,000 because we are able to earn a significant amount of interest. For the fiscal year that we are currently in, we are going to need to have a little over $500,000 or $500,000 from other funding sources other than mission support. And for the budget that we're going to ask you to approve for 2026, that number is going to exceed $790,000. Now, since our mission support is declining at least $100,000 a year, and this cost is going up, we are currently very solvent, but it is not sustainable for the future. That's why we're talking about restructuring.
Okay, we have two similar questions, both regarding how the executive associates' work will be done.
Well, I can address that. Over the past several years and over the past several terms of bishops, some of the jobs that are required to be done by the elected officers are in fact done by staff. And so we began by looking at the job description for the executive associate and assigned to the staff, not assigned to the staff, assigned to the officers, those duties that are required of us in the Constitution. And in the near term, until that position can be filled, the bishop is going to assume the remaining duties.
Donald, please check your chat for a question.
I don't see it.
Okay, I'll go on to another one. If the bishop continues as head of staff, does this mean that the associates to the bishop and the staff continue to serve at the discretion of the bishop?
They've always been at the discretion of the bishop. There are no plans to reduce the associates until a new structure is put into place, if the new structure calls for a reduction.
Okay. Will the current associates remain? Can Carl's resignation be rescinded?
Only if Carl wants it to be rescinded. The Synod Council did vote on a motion of a council member, which I seconded, asking Carl to reconsider his resignation. So the ball's in his court on that.
Okay, we've got a question that's pretty specific. In the second bullet under the Personnel Committee, there is reference to an additional person in quotes. Who would this additional person be? Has that been determined? Recommend to specify who the person would be by title.
Well, and keep in mind that this is a recommendation, and the executive committee will be adding more detail to it. This proposal was only generated on Saturday. In all probability, it could be another staff member or a member of the Synod Council, depending upon the nature of the conversation. One must recognize that personnel matters are extremely confidential. And in all cases, if that's being discussed, then a neutral person should be in attendance. And we can look at other staff members, depending upon the urgency of the meeting, or members of the Synod Council.
Would the bishop's plan address the future budget concerns?
Well, I sure hope so, since I've been talking about this for some time, and I'm a member of the restructuring committee and the Synod Council, and so that's the purpose of doing all of it. If we wouldn't address the fiscal condition, then there would probably be no reason to look at restructuring.
How long is the bishop's term?
Uh, it goes for several months, I think, until September, following the Synod Assembly that does the election. The regular term is 6 years, and depending upon when the 2026 Assembly is held, an election occurs. I believe the regulation calls for the bishop to remain in office for 3 months to provide for an orderly transition.
Okay. All right. We do have some duplicate questions in here. Let's see. In tabling the strategic intent implementation, I am concerned we will remain in a holding pattern. Is there a direction for how our synod will commit to move forward on addressing the issues which informed the strategic intent in this next year?
It is our intent to begin working on that the week after the assembly. Now, the principal thing that is put on hold would be the 3 new positions that the strategic intent calls for. It has no effect on 6261 or free to be or for the licensed lay minister program. Those programs will proceed as they currently are. And anything that has to take place, that when we read the details of that plan, that can be implemented with the Synod Council's approval as soon as the plan develops far enough and the council votes to allow us to do that, we'll do it. So technically, I would hope that by the 2027, I should say, Synod Assembly, we will have a completed plan and a new structure.
I believe, how much of the have to be approved?
That was a little jumbled coming in, Eric. So can you repeat the question?
Okay, how much of the restructuring will have to be approved by the ELCA?
I don't believe the ELCA will have to approve any of it. The ELCA is currently going to restructure itself, but how the structure of the Synod is laid out is a matter for the Assembly to approve. I don't believe the ELCA plays a major role in that, as long as we adhere to the Constitution, that is.
I believe that I have forwarded all chatted messages, questions on to Donald, either by doing so or that he actually addressed your question in his talk. If I have not done that, please send your message again, right again. Now we have a question about the budget. I believe you meant to say, am I correct in understanding that the new budget calls for an increase in $700K? If that is the case, with deficit giving to the Synod, how feasible is this to maintain?
No, I didn't say that. I merely said we have put out a balanced budget, but in order to balance that budget, we had to take 700 and I believe it's 90,000 dollars, I don't have it in front of me, of money from other funds and other sources, which we have, in order to balance that. My remark was we can't sustain this increasing every year with a decrease in the mission support dollars. But the one year, Carl is going to explain that in gory detail on Saturday, I believe, and you should get a good idea of that. We have other funds, and most of them are restricted by the donors. And if need be, we could always go back to the donor if they're still alive, or go to court to get some of that change. But that's the last resort. There are sufficient funds to do what we're planning on doing.
Will delaying the plan for restructuring mean we will be delaying the cost setting that needs to be done?
Well, that's a good question. The 2026 budget was developed so that it covers either everything called for in the strategic intent or the maintenance of the current structure. So at least in the short term, it won't slow down anything. Now, as in any budget, there are plenty of variables. I have no clue what the interest rates are going to be. In this past 2024, we earned $111,000 in interest. So far in 2025, we're chugging right along. In the past, we never really had to look at on a daily basis where our interest was coming from, but now we do. Most of our interest earnings are not coming from investments in which we can lose the principal. So we've been very careful about that. And so I don't foresee anything, but there are an awful lot of what ifs in putting a budget together. The mission support, as you all know, is based on the generosity of the congregations and individuals. And each congregation is going through the same financial difficulties as the synod is. And but we're covered very well in the short term. My concern is what happens 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Will the synod remain geographically the same?
The geography of the synod was created by the ELCA. There may be some changes in mission districts. In fact, recently 2 congregations in one, and congregations have the right under the current constitution to request being put in a different mission district. So there won't be any change in the geography of the synod as we know it. Now, that all depends on what the LCA tells us in July. Excuse me, but rumor has it they're going to maintain all 65 synods.
As treasurer, do you have or plan to have plan for suggestions regarding salaries in the next 12 months?
We do. And it's been our recommendation that we base salary increases on the changes in the consumer price index. That, and taken into account the area in which the staff is operating. For example, when we looked at the salaries for the coordinating staff, that's the current name of the group, we looked at the Department of Labor salaries for similar positions in Lehigh County. So we're very cognizant of that.
Okay, and to what extent can we use automation to increase efficiency and effectiveness in mission support and execution?
Well, one of the tasks that's being assigned back to me, I said back to me because the treasurer is supposed to be managing all of that. We're going to begin in July doing a complete study of mission support dollars and the process and the whole 9 yards. So we're going to get a group together and the finance committee, and we're going to proceed with that. But that's all I can tell you at this time.
Okay, we have reached the end of the questions that have been submitted.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. If there are questions that come to mind when you wake up in the middle of the night, feel free to send them to info@nepsynod.org, and we will make sure that they get to the appropriate responder. So without any further ado, I'm going to welcome Eric Gombert to join me here in the video world, and he's going to walk us through our next test vote.
Thanks, Lauren. So, all of you are about to see the vPoll app magically appear on the side of your Zoom screen. Those of you who are going to be coming in person to Stroudsburg for the assembly, I would suggest that you just ignore what's going to be happening on the screen here in just a moment in the Zoom app. But those of you who are going to be attending assembly via Zoom, you are welcome and urged to use the app, the vPoll app, within Zoom during the assembly. Again, those of you who are in person, you're not going to want to go on to Zoom so you could use this. You're going to vote on whatever device you're bringing to assembly, your phone. All right. So, I believe you should have all just seen that. Yes. The vPoll app. Okay. So those of you who are going to be on Zoom, I suggest that you go ahead and start logging in there. Everybody else, use either the QR code or the link that is in the email you received. If you don't have either of those available to you, getting to this year's voting app is pretty easy. You're going to go to, in a web browser, go to vPoll, VPOLL.MOBI. And that will take you to vPoll, our voting app. You should now be able to see, I'm sharing my phone. So if you go directly to that site, or if you're going in through the Zoom interface, you're going to see a screen just like this. Whoops. And you're going to put in 2025 SA. And then it's going to ask you for your ID number, which is 3 digits. You receive that in an email from me. You're going to put in your last name, which is dependent. Then you're going to select the polling session. Typically, there is only going to be one available. Okay. So we should all be looking at a screen that looks very similar to the one that I'm sharing. And I invite Michael to go ahead and send us our first question. I like Reese's peanut butter cups. So you're going to select one of the 3 answers in this case, yes, no, or abstain. After selecting it, click the submit button and you get a message. Answer is successfully saved. That tells you that you voted. Okay, so we have 115 people on our session here. So far, only about 57 of you have voted. Come on, we want to hear about your like of peanut butter cups. So I am going to switch my screen sharing. All right. Michael, whenever you're ready, go ahead and close the vote. Now tells us that result will be broadcast shortly, and very soon we will see the result of our vote. Okay, so that was our first test vote for the evening. The second one is going to be just a little bit different. So, Michael, whenever you're ready, let's move ahead and do our second vote. So you can now see on the screen that I have shared. The next question is up there. I'm also going to share my phone again. So this is a slightly different style of question. I like the following summertime activities. Choose up to 3. So if I go so far as to choose 4 and submit, it tells me I can only select 3, so I have to go back and take one away. Again, when I click submit, it tells me that my answer is successfully saved. If you do not get that screen, your vote did not go through. And the votes are still coming in, so we're going to hold this open for just a little bit while longer. All right, Michael, the voting is slowed enough if you want to think about closing it. And there we go. This is how we voted as a group on the second test vote. Okay. All right. So I have a message here. Someone was unable to log in because of valid credentials. I will be reaching out to you over the next day or two, so we can make sure that we've got the same things. Places to charge phones and computers. We're working to have some of that available on site. The person who asked about meals, Lauren Applegate, will be talking about some of that a little bit later.
Yep.
And those of you who were on the test vote on last week, you got results on your voting device screen. That was an error in the way we had that test vote set up. So notice that did not happen on your voting device screen tonight. Voting results will only be broadcast onto the big screens at the assembly which will come into the assembly hall and also go out over Zoom. So everybody will be seeing them that way all at the same time. And I think that's it. Thank you, Lauren.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. Again, if you had issues with that, reach out to helpdesk@nepsynod.org by email, and Eric will connect you to the information that you need to make it happen. All right. So our next topic of conversation is with Deacon Kat Tigerman and Pastor Jaira Albers to be talking about the 6261 ministry, give an update there, and to raise and share more information about the licensed lay minister track. So if we have Deacon Kat.
Yeah, hey everyone.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Show's all yours, dear.
Okay, I'm gonna share. Can you see that, Lauren? Can you give me a thumbs up that it's working? Awesome.
We see your not
Perfect.
the presentation
There you
mode.
go. Okay.
There we go.
Hi everyone. Thanks for giving me a few minutes to update you. I know some of you are probably sick of seeing this slide, but for those of you whom this might be new, 6261 ministry communities are something we've been working on in our synod for almost 2 years now. The idea launched 2 synod assemblies ago. So those numbers stand for 6 congregations, bundling together to be served by 2 full-time pastors, 6 licensed lay ministers, and 1 deacon, to be sharing common life, ministry, and mission. So again, we have kind of this slide that breaks out and you can see the variety of folks that might be working with you. We think about like, who might you need and how will they be coming together? Some of you may already have a pastor or a deacon or multiple pastors. Some of you have been working to grow up some licensed lay ministers in your congregations. Pastor Jai will give you more exciting numbers about that in a few minutes. But these are kind of the folks we're looking to bring together to be this team for ministry, doing ministry in your even broader community. Who is this for? So this is a lovely little snapshot of our Northeastern Pennsylvania Synod. It's actually not that large geographically compared to some of the other synods that Dr. Boyer was mentioning, but we do have almost the largest number of congregations out of the whole church-wide number of synods. So we have 237 in this area, right? And so we're pretty densely packed together. One of the benefits of, I think, these deep Lutheran roots in this Pennsylvania area. And so 6261 is meant to really take advantage of that, right? Bringing us together, recognizing we have these congregations in close proximity, some with shared histories, some without. Some, maybe split off at some point. I've heard a lot of those stories. And some just, right, we kind of kept planting as we got further out than our horses could carry us. So this is meant for rural, urban, suburban, whatever your area looks like now. Some exciting updates from even last year is that our ecumenical partners, we have a really strong relationship and commitment with the Episcopal Church. And so Bishop DeForest has met with the Episcopal Bishop. So we're moving forward with several ecumenical bundles, especially on our northern tier. So that's very exciting. And we just had a really lovely conversation with our UCC friends. They're in the middle of kind of merging some of their, what they call conferences similar to our synods. And so they're still working on that piece, but are very excited about this and want to be as supportive as possible. So we'll be working out more details specifically about what that looks like to share and how that works as their own kind of boundaries and judicatory lines are changing. But our friends that we call our full communion partners are in this with us and want to share in this. And so they are welcome. So if you don't think you have 6, ELCA congregations right down the street, you don't have to. You have all these other lovely Christians in your neighborhood. Also, you don't have to be in any stage of sort of the process, right? You can be in a transition, so that can be an opportunity if you're already looking to call someone. Maybe there's other folks that you can bundle together with to do that. or you could have been in a long-term vacancy, right? Or you could currently have pastors, Pretzel City will share a little bit of update for them. They had several pastors already, and they also had a pastor retire in the middle of that process. So you don't have to have someone serving you. You don't have to have had someone serving you for a long time. We work that out kind of with where you are at. And then finally, it's congregations of any size. So you don't have to be with all the congregations of the same size, right? You don't have to have a minimum number of people to participate. There's no maximum number. So we're working on how all of that contributes together, and that obviously will shift what your specific bundle will look like. But that's sort of the beauty of making this very contextual and working with who you are and what's happening before you. I can say that we have our Pretzel City who has launched. We have 15 other areas and kind of various stages of discernment, at least one in each of our 9 mission districts. So we are really spread throughout the Synod map. I'm pointing to it, but obviously you're not seeing me pointing to the map. So I think that's really exciting. And we'll just see, next Synod Assembly, who else has launched, and I'll share a little bit more of that at the end. But I'm going to turn it over now to Pastor Jaira to share a little bit about licensed lay ministry.
All right, licensed lay ministry. Thank you, Kat. I'll give you the short version of licensed lay ministry. What is a licensed lay minister? It's an individual raised up by a congregation or 6261 community and trained to serve their own congregation or 6261 community. Now that service can look anything like filling in with preaching and presiding while the pastor's on vacation, within their own congregation or 6261 community, or being an active minister in the absence of a pastor, like during transition, let's say, in that congregation or 6261 community. Though rare, the bishop can also authorize a licensed lay minister to serve in a nearby congregation who's in need of a minister. And even rarer still, but still possible, the bishop can authorize a particular licensed lay minister to serve as general pulpit supply throughout the synod, although you need to be someone with significant education for that sort of license. So, education to become a licensed lay minister. What are the requirements? Well, just in short, you need 4 retreats that help to form your Lutheran identity, and it helps to form a cohort of colleagues that you can relate to and learn with. If you talk to anyone who's going through the formation process right now, I'm sure all of them will tell you that that's the real meat of it, right? There are 4 classes that you need to take at a trusted institution of higher education, college or seminary, who we trust. And then there's various tasks that you need to complete with a mentor who is a rostered leader in the synod. So the numbers, we have had 60 total applicants for licensed lay ministry. We have 42 candidates that are at some point in the formation process right now, and we have 5 people who are currently serving as licensed lay ministers. That was the short version. If you want the long version, I ask you to go to the licensed lay ministry section on our website, and you can put yourself to sleep with that LLM handbook. So many have.
Thank you, Pastor Jaira. If I can get the slideshow to keep going there. So I'm going to just do a brief overview of what is a deacon as we've kind of worked through all of our numbers, right? Our congregations, our pastors we're familiar with, our licensed lay ministers, as Pastor Jaira has just shared about. And then that last one is a deacon. And we are going to be having a special time of actually ordaining some of our deacons at Synod Assembly this year, and then recognizing those who were formally consecrated or commissioned as being ordained on this service of word and on this roster of word and service, excuse me. And so I'm going to just kind of give you a foray into a couple of the images, and we'll have a little bit of interactive time with that at Assembly, so you can look forward to that. But a deacon is on the roster of word and service. We have pastors on the roster of word and sacrament, right? We have sacraments, baptism, and Holy Communion. So what is this other piece? The service is out in the world. And it's really a calling we all have. As a deacon, right, I've kind of taken this vow that part of my calling is to remind the whole church that we're called to this work, right? It's not just deacons who do this, but we try to have an intentionality of reminding us that that's what we're all called to do. So two of my personal favorites of the 5 images are foot washing, right? And so we see Jesus washing the disciples' feet at the Last Supper. And one way that I like to think about this is, right, we take the towel and the towel molds itself around the foot. So the service is molding around the individual or the community that Jesus has called us to be in, right? Jesus didn't have this like cast kind of towel that he was trying to cram into the feet and all be the same, right? That towel is flexible. And so we have a flexibility of service in our work too, right? And then bridge building. And so I think that is very applicable to our 6261 ministry communities, because as deacons sort of traditionally bridge church and world, right? How do we live out what we are saying and proclaiming on Sunday morning, the other 6 days of the week? And how do we evangelize? How do we welcome others into this community of believers on Sunday morning? The deacon's going to be doing some of that bridge work among the 6 congregations, right? Helping connect them together in this bundle and also helping them connect together out into the community. So those are 2 of the 5. The others include storytelling, bearing the light, and then table setting. So I won't get into those this evening, but if you have more questions, I'd be happy to share more about that anytime. And so as I kind of mentioned, right, this primary ministry project, that thing that the 6261 ministry community can do together, maybe better together than they could do on their own, for the sake of the gospel in their community, right? That will look very different depending where you're at. It could be part of our Synod values of love, heal, and engage. It could be doing something with affordable housing. It could be working with a prison ministry. It could be kind of a food justice. There's really no limit to what you could be doing. And so it could be something you're already doing and you're building on together. That's kind of what Pretzel City is doing, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But it could be something totally new, right? That you had just thought was not possible with your congregation, but with 6 of you together, you're able to do that. So really looking at what are the gifts God has given us together and how can we use that for our community. So here are some pictures from Pretzel City. They launched officially on February 1st of this year. We had this awesome celebration mid-February. This is at Christ Glenside in Reading. And you can see sort of all 6 of the congregations represented there. One of their LLM candidates made those sort of Pretzel City plaques. So they each have one in their congregation as a reminder that they're in this community together, and kind of a beautiful way to pray for each other when they're in their own spaces, and then also this symbol of their new commitment to one another. So there was a potluck and there was a hymn sing and the celebration to sign the covenant, and you can see the joint choir there is one of the pictures. It was really exciting to hear them come together in that early space. So their primary ministry project is building on the community gardens they already have, the food pantries they already have, their partnership with Cafe Esperanza and Hope's Table. So they've called it a food web ministry, and some of them will be with us at the table, the connection place at Synod Assembly. So you're welcome and encouraged to come ask them more about that there. But they're building on that and trying to coordinate it in a way that better serves the community, goes a little bit broader, a little deeper, that allows for more participation, and that continues to address the needs, and they can support one another. So that's very exciting. They have other things that they're looking forward to this summer as well. And they have a deacon now. So they have a deacon and they have 3 licensed lay ministry candidates. 1 or 2 of them is going to be licensed in the summer or the fall, depending when Pastor Jaira is able to do all that completion piece. So that's very exciting. And we're looking forward to a few more joining that process as well. So then here is my email. Here's Pastor Jaira's email. Here's kind of the general 6261 information if you'd like that link. as well as the LLM link. And then Pastor Jira and I will be having the 6261 and LLM tables next to each other. So if you have questions about one or the other, we'll be right there under the same kind of canopy. And some reps from Pretzel City will be accompanying me throughout the journey. So if you want to ask them what their experience has been like, they will be there too. I think, am I supposed to invite people for questions, Lauren? Okay, so if you have questions that you'd like to.
You already have two of them.
I already have two of them. Okay. Eric, do you want to read them to me?
Sure. How wise is it to have paid staff coming from the congregation? I was referring to the lay member staff.
I see. So you're asking about the licensed lay minister and whether it's a good idea to be paying them and having them kind of up from the congregation. That is a good question. So there's a variety of ways that the licensed lay minister will be serving in the 6261. Some will be doing Sunday rate supply and they'll be paid at the supply rate. Others will be doing additional things and might be stipended in that role. So they could be possibly coordinating a food bank or some kind of part of your ministry. I guess that's a really good question. Thinking about, I'm assuming this is coming from the liability side, right? Of what if something goes wrong versus sort of, I think the hope was that this would be a good connected person, right? That someone is in your congregation, they know you, you'll be familiar with them. Even as some of the pastors and the deacon rotate, right? Your licensed lay minister is there. I suppose that could be debated whether it's wise or not. Unless, I mean, I'll see if Pastor Jira has something to add to that too. But I think that would apply whether you're in a 6261 or not in that situation, because they're still coming from the congregation. Whereas in the 6261, right, you're still in this kind of teamwork setting.
So I can come at it from a little bit of experience from another synod that uses these sort of leaders within the congregation. The Montana Synod has one of these leaders in almost every single one of their congregations, and quite frankly, over there they serve in various amounts of ways, but a lot of them sort of just fill in for the pastor while they're on vacation. And then when you're in pastoral transition, then all of a sudden they're active, but then they sort of die down again. But I think the any issues with that really has to do with how they would be utilized, I guess.
And they are licensed annually. So that's
Yeah.
another piece of, I don't know if oversight is the right word, but accountability.
If they've lost the bishop's trust, then they won't be licensed again.
In addition to that question, I was thinking in terms of an issue and possibly losing a member or members if there was a problem with their action.
I mean, I suppose that's the case whether they're paid staff or not. But I suppose that is a risk that you might have to weigh in your congregation then. And part of why I think this is a discernment piece, right? We aren't calling it a licensed lay ministry program, but a formation path, a kind of calling to that that ministry, and you're discerning it right with your council and others in your congregation and with the LLM team and others who are hopefully doing some work to see what that might look like or if that might be a possible conflict.
And hopefully a congregation wouldn't raise up someone into this position who they don't trust. Yeah, I mean, I know anything can happen, right? But a lot of that can be reduced just by the congregation itself.
Another question, who is the staff at Pretzel City?
Oh, fun. So Pastor Bruce Osterhout, Pastor Drew Neidig, Pastor Rebecca Knox, and then Deacon Diana Pelletier.
Okay, another question. 6261 is a wonderful image/goal, but it requires flexibility on the part of congregations who need to work together. How can you get that flexibility when many congregations insist on having things be exactly so, such as their worship times?
Oh, that's a fun question. Yes, it is a flexible framework. And so all of it requires sort of a sense of flexibility. I will also say, and I think Pretzel City would say this as well. And I've seen it not just there, but they've obviously made the whole journey, right? As you go through this process, right, it's a building of trust, it's a opening up to the spirit, it's a seeing what's possible, right? And so I think often we do come to the table like a little anxious, a little wondering how this is going to work, like maybe wanting to be flexible, but not wanting to be flexible in these areas. And I think the other way to approach it is we kind of look at what are the needs? Like, what do we really need? If we had to say this is the one or two things that we really, really want to make sure because it's so important to our congregation, whether that is your worship time or having communion every Sunday, or maybe it's doing this really particular thing. When we lay that all out, I think you'd be surprised at how often all those needs can be met. They're usually not conflicting needs. And maybe that's just been God's blessing this far. But there's a way that most of those needs can be met. And then if we say, I really want Holy Communion, but my worship time isn't as important, there's a way to shift that so that others can have Holy Communion and maybe others could have their worship time, right? So those are just like really practical things regarding kind of the worship schedule. But as you work through some of those logistics, I think it has really stirred a spirit of that flexibility. And with that then, right, what can we do together? And so now we can think about this, and the creativity just sort of brings all of these sometimes even unknown assets, right, out of the woodwork or gifts or new folks to the table. So I mean, that's why there's prayer involved in this, right? Like I'm always praying for our 6261 communities and our congregations and just that general spirit of collaboration. And I think those that are in this discernment process for that are also doing that. And I think that helps us know what we're looking to collaborate on and what is really important to us and how do we move into that new area.
So we have a statement. I never liked the church secretary being a church member. And a question, is there staff support and mutual ministry included in the plans for 6261 bundles?
Yes. So there's that in a variety of ways. There's like for the LLM specifically, if we're talking about that, right, especially as they come through the formation path, they have a pastor or deacon mentor. Also, they have the benefit of doing it with the other 5 or 6 in their bundle. And so they're gaining some of that those mentor guided activities individually with one and feedback and also learning from each other. So that's sort of how the accountability for the LLMs that I know is sometimes a concern is built in, and also a collegiality network. Support for the staff is coming in part from Synod office, in part from Synod Council, and also through coaches. We have a coach that meets with the staff as they're figuring out how do we do all of these things together. This is going well, but now we have a question about that. Another kind of sounding board. The coach is also available to work with the engagement team, helping build those 6 congregations together. And when I say engagement team, that's sort of the joint council that's working specifically with the primary ministry project, but also annually is putting that joint budget together and overseeing that. And so those outside resources are available and kind of built into the ethos of this so that they are supported along the way in real time. And then we have cohorts for the staff, and also we're hoping to launch an LLM cohort once we have enough LLMs in the fall. And so they're working with a facilitator. They have retreats and kind of looking at how do we do this collaborative ministry? What are the challenges when we are now a team? And we're a team with 6 congregations, right? Not a large congregation that has, multiple staff. There are some similarities in how we do staffing together, but there's also a lot of differences, right? We have 6 buildings, we have 6 histories, we have 6 congregations. And so how do we overlap that? How do we address kind of anxiety in the system? How do we address anxiety in ourselves? We have anxiety in the world. So some of those kind of practical pieces are built in. And right now we have those retreats about every 6 months. And so then the coaches are meant to kind of help in between that space as well.
Fun question. Where did you get that cool 6261 logo?
On there, Stacy Burke. She helped design that, so credit goes to her. I didn't get to announce that, but I was going to say, so thank you to whoever set me up for this question, that we have a colorful, lovely 6261 kind of guide. So I know there's been a lot of information on the website, and not always maybe the easiest to read. It's just kind of black and white print. So she has really worked hard to pull that together. So that will be available to you. I have a QR code for that. At the Connection Place table. So that will be another resource for you, kind of all in one place, and a little bit happier to go through, and you can see the colors from the logo throughout it.
Another question. What is the recommended physical distance between and among the 6 churches?
Physical distance. Okay. Typically we say like 15 to 20 minutes versus miles, because 15 to 20 minutes could be very different in a congested city traffic versus in our rural parts. But it also kind of depends on what you're used to. And I think that timing piece is maybe more helpful than the miles in that, because right, we all know what feels too far, right? And so for some folks that might be 5 miles, for other folks it might be 30 miles. So that's another piece that's worked out. That's kind of the, I would say, starting place. So think about like those that are closest around you. But also think about, where do you go to the grocery store? Where do you do your other shopping? What are the central hubs that bring you together, right? What are the post offices that you use or don't use? Those kinds of things I think are additional helpful markers, as well as like school district lines. Not that you can't be across school district lines, but sometimes that's another piece that pulls us together.
Okay. How does the licensed lay staff affect the number of delegated from each church at assembly?
I don't think it actually affects it. This is something Synod Council is still working on. But the licensed lay minister could be your lay delegate, or you could have another lay delegate. So you would still have your roster ministers are still there, and then each congregation would still have their number of delegates based on the size of their congregation.
And that appears to be the end of the questions that we have received so far.
Well, thank you. Those were great questions. I had some new ones, so.
Awesome. Given a couple more seconds to make sure that no last minute questions come in before we switch gears again. Thank you so much, Deacon Kat Tigerman and Pastor Jair Albers, for all of what's going on. Thank you so much for sharing. As a reminder for folks here on the Zoom, if you are sending in questions, make sure you are sending them to chat questions here and not to me directly, because that means I have to do an extra step of making sure I forward them to Eric at Chat Questions here. So, but we're in this together and we are working together. So, yes. So I will remove both of you from spotlights. So good job. Great presentation. Thanks so much. So at this point in our time together, so we have 20 more minutes before we reach the end of our designated time. We're going to have a general Q&A about the assembly. And to kick that off, I wanted to invite a few people to share what they are most excited about for assembly. So if you are a part of the planning team and you want to raise your hand, I will, and please share, what are you most excited about as we go into Connect the Dots for Synod Assembly 2025. Thanks, Helen. You're first. Come on in.
Hi, everyone. I think that I'm excited about many things, but what I'm most excited about is connecting the dots at the Connection Place. We've already heard Connection Place mentioned a few times tonight, so I'm really excited to be able to share with our participants, my particular booth, and to get to go around myself to some of the other booths. I've been working on some goodies and things to share. That should be a lot of fun, but I think it's going to be so great to get to interact with each other in this way. And I think the structure that you've set up is going to be a lot of fun for allowing time for us to move around from table to table and really get to see each other. And I also love that we do have a lot of that information also available online so that our folks who are remote will be able to also share and getting that information and seeing a little bit more about the organizations and the ministry teams and the other synod work that we're doing. So that is what I am most excited about.
Thanks, Helen. Anybody else who's involved with the pulling together of the pulling together of assembly that would like to share what they're excited about? Raise your hands. Bishop, there you are. Here we go. Unmute you. Come on in.
Well, I would just tag on to what Helen is saying because I'm excited about it too. And one of the things that we're doing, we realized that we could talk about this, but the people who are who are doing this online are not going to be present. So one of the ideas we're doing this year that's different is that Brandon Wood and Bo DeForest are going to be going around, going onto the Zoom and going around to all the booths during the break times when everyone else is out there amongst them to give you a sampling and hopefully to get to all 17 or 18 or 19 or 20 different places over those couple of different break times. So those of you who are not coming, you'll be able to stay online and see that. And hopefully that again will be going to recording so you can watch it later too and see how they went from place to place and got to explore things with folks. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Bishop. Next up, we have Pastor Rachel Dietz. Welcome in.
Hello, I am most excited about the deacon worship service, the festival worship service, not only because it celebrates deacons, also because of the language and the imagery that is being planned to use throughout it, that it is it's filled with different vocabulary and different words than our word and sacrament focused liturgies are. And so I've never experienced that before, although I have experienced a deacon ordination. So I've never experienced a worship service where the starting place is the imagery around the diaconate.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Pastor Rachel. Anyone else that's involved with the planning and the bringing together of ideas? Anything that you're excited about, Synod Assembly? Before I open it up for general questions. I see that there are some that have come in. Is Connection Place a physical location? And if so, where will it be? That's a great question. It is a physical place, and we hope it's outside. We also have plans that if it's raining, we will be inside. So we're excited that it is a physical place, and also it is a collection of information that everybody can access on the website, as well as the Zoom experience that Bishop referred to just a minute ago. Hey, I see Pastor Tom Irwin. Come on in.
Hey, I've been hearing all about this Connection Place, and I will be on Zoom, so I won't be physically in the Connection Place. So I just want to make sure that the bishop has mailed the goodie bags with all the handouts that you get at the Connection Place, all the pens and all the candy and all that. So they should be in the mail by now, right?
Yeah, something
Yeah,
about
okay.
that.
Just checking.
Something about that. I love you, Pastor Tom Irwin. I'll bring you some at camp. Have no fear. Have no
I hear you.
I
hear
got
you.
stickers for you.
No, I'm sure.
Good to see you. Let's see. Oh, we've got another exciting thing. Helen, do you want to come in and share what you're excited about with our visitors?
Yes, I forgot to mention that when I was talking. The other thing I'm excited about is we're going to have some wonderful visitors coming all the way from Germany to spend some time with us. And how exciting is that? That they're not only coming over to see us, but that they're going to get to spend time with us at Synod Assembly. And what a fun way for them to get to know about our Synod and what we're doing, and for us to get to meet them.
Indeed it is. I must admit, I was creating slides for the worship where there will be German and English on the slide at the same time, and I may have gotten a really bad migraine that day. I'm not blaming the German. I may just be blaming my need to sit here and stare at letters with such wide eyes. So I hope everything goes really well, and I'm excited about that too, Helen. Any other questions? I love the music choice for the pop-up choir. Yes. Good, good, good. Yes. There is a pop-up choir. The information for how you can join that is on our website. It will be, help me. Is somebody here that knows the information off the top of their head? Raise your hand and I'll unmute you. But it's going to be a lovely piece that folks are invited to participate in. And you will get a printed copy of the music when you get there, but do what you can to learn it beforehand and also know what song it is. That's my brain. That just went, that's not information you need right
I
now.
think it's God is our refuge and strength, the song.
God
one
is
of
our
the
refuge
songs.
and
Yeah,
strength, the
it's a fun one.
SATB version. Yes.
And I think rehearsal's at 6:30 on Friday.
It is. Rehearsal is 6:30 on Friday. The pop-up choir, our worship starts at 7. So the choir will be practicing in our main space there at Christ Hamilton United Lutheran Church, in the Lighthouse Center, I think is what the building is called. We've got another person participating in the planning, looking forward to the presenters and workshops. Yes, me too. Our presenters this year will have yes, we will be having, our keynote speaker is coming from Jen Bradbury. She's coming from the Growing Young Initiative. We're going to have Reverend Tim Brown from the ELCA, and we're going to have a special preacher with us over Zoom. The Reverend Dr. Norma Cook Everest will be our preacher for festival worship. So there will be lots of good things and good people gathering with us as we connect the dots. For doing the work of loving, healing, and engaging in this world that God so deeply loves. So
We have the question, is there a list of workshops available?
the workshops are not separate workshops. They're going to be the keynotes in our plenary sessions. And then further conversation with the people that you want to learn more from will happen at the Connection Place. And hopefully some of them will have follow-up events or ways for you to engage with their material so you can continue to learn and continue to connect in a way that helps us to co-create in this world that God so deeply loves. So, Pastor Tom
Question about,
again, raising a
quick
hand.
question about the choir. Must you sign up for the choir or just show up at the appointed time?
Show up at the
And somebody
appointed
wrote in and said the rehearsal for the choir is 5:45 to 6:30.
Thank you for correcting us. Yes, absolutely. 5:45, yes, to 6:30. I don't believe there's a sign up. If you go to the website, there's the banner across the top for how to participate in the pop-up choir when you get to the assembly page. And the full information is there. I see a raised hand from my good friend, Pastor Tom Irwin.
Yeah, this is an actual question.
Oh, wow.
Normally, the Synod has received an offering during the worship service for World Hunger.
Yep.
I would assume that's going to be the same.
That
But
is
how
the
does
same.
one on Zoom make that offering?
Yeah, so through our giving page on the Synod website, you will participate there's a way to choose the assembly offering when you go into the giving button on the Synod website.
All right.
And
I'll do
your
that while I'm
gift,
I'm sorry?
your gift, no matter how big or small, will be included in the offering of
It
the Synod.
depends on how many goodies I get.
Oh, those are fighting words, Sir Tom. Yes, and we will also send a link during that time in the Zoom chat to bring you directly to the giving page to be able to do that. And I hear that the slide creator is also including a QR code. So
A what?
There will be a QR code on the screen as well.
Okay.
Because we're fancy. We're
Yeah,
fancy.
yeah, that's great. You guys
Okay?
are good. Thank you.
This whole planning thing, it's a good team effort. Thank you for bringing your questions, Tom. Any other general questions? We have 7:51. You got a few more minutes to make sure we're out of here on time. Yes. Come on in. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Great.
I heard you were going to talk about food. Only because
Yes.
I'll probably be trying to do the pop-up choir, so there's not going to be a whole lot of time between when things end and when we have to go to choir practice.
Yes. So we will have buffet lines. Hopefully, given good weather, it'll be in multiple places. There will be multiple places to grab food. And you have my permission to say, trying to get to pop-up choir, and hopefully the people in line with you will make sure that you're not held up. There's going to be probably many people that are doing the same. So we're trying to make sure that the path from getting your food and getting to a table to eat it at is smooth and well thought through. Of course, the big who knows is with weather. So in the event of weather, the outdoor seating under a big tent might be complicated. So we are hoping to have plenty of seating inside to be able to accommodate all of our eating. But we're all there together and we're doing what we can to make sure that we each have the space and grace to eat our meals while we are there. So any other
If we know the
specific
check-in
information
time
on
for the
these?
hotel, there's more than one hotel. When those reservations were made, you should have been made aware of the check-in time. I'm pretty sure it's the Baymont is 3 o'clock. I'm not sure about the other, but 3 o'clock is kind of a normal time. Will there be Wi-Fi available, or will we be using our mobile data to vote? Please use your mobile data if you can, especially if it's free. There is Wi-Fi available, but that same network is what's being used to do all of our production and send the assembly out of Stroudsburg over to all of our people who are on Zoom. So we don't want to tax that network too hard. And we've been asked about the official start time of assembly on Friday and end time on Saturday.
All right, official start is, oh, I should know this. So the first plenary session starts at 2 o'clock is the start of first plenary. However, check-in and the connection place is available starting at 12:30. So 12:30 to 2 o'clock. There will be opportunities to connect and to check in and to start building those connections. And then our first plenary session is happening at 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon. On Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, as I click over to my next document, because I'm not at the end of plenary 3 yet. I'm still somewhere mid plenary 2. So plenary 3 will end around 4, and then we'll have sending worship and installations for the closing of assembly that'll go until about 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. Any additional questions? This is a very interactive evening, folks. I am appreciative of the way that y'all are engaging and asking good questions and having good conversations. This is how we do what we do. This is how we do what we do. For God is here among the people. All right, I'm seeing no more, and it's 7:55. That means we've given you back the 5 minutes we went over on Thursday evening. So if there are no additional questions, or if you sent a question into the chat, I know I see a few here, but I don't have the brain space to be able to forward them over to do the things. we'll make sure that it gets to where it needs to go. And if you'd rather email directly, you can email technical issues to helpdesk@nepsynod.org or info@nepsynod.org. And we'll make sure that you have the answer to the questions that you've posed. We appreciate all of you for being here. May God be with us in this time and forevermore. Amen, amen. So long, folks. See you real soon.